Okay. So if you are watching this right now, that means you probably did not make it on the rock walk with rock like myself. And so I'm going to explain this to you. Uh, you should find on the Schoology website, I'm assuming you found it because you found this video, that there is a handout. It's a town walk inquiry. It's a kind of a graphic organizer for you to keep track of what's going on here. Okay? So I'm going to take you through the stops that we went to, and if you've got questions about that, you can come in and talk with me. Try to make sense of it for you. So, I'm going to start off. Here was our first stop. This is the sidewalk wall, and we are on the south end of the Douglas County Courthouse, and the rock wall that we're looking at is this rock wall right here. And you'll notice that it's made up of a variety of different types of rock. If we look at it a little more closely, here are some of the rocks that are a good representation of what you're seeing here. The stuff that's in between here, this is mortar. Maybe I can try to write on that a little bit. I can do that. Okay. So this stuff is mortar, and that's not what you need to worry about. But the rock in between the mortar is what we're making observations of. And so what I would want you to do is to, from what you see here, these are obviously the same type of rock. How would you describe it? Would you call it igneous, sedimentary, metamorphic? And once you make your decision, what did you base that on? I mean, what properties did you look at and identify here to tell you what kind of rock it was? So the observations of what you see here is the first thing you would write in your chart. The rock classification, igneous, sedimentary, metamorphic, would be the next. And then finally, if you could try to put a name on this, that would be the third thing. The final thing that you have here, based on what you're calling this rock, what could happen to this rock in terms of the rock cycle? What might be a logical next step for this rock? Or if you have a question about this rock, a question for inquiry, that's what the last column is for. Okay, moving on. Like I said, that is the courthouse. And here, what I'm looking at is the top half of the courthouse. That's very interesting. Why am I not seeing the rest of it? I bet you if I try to draw that down, that's going to be... Okay. So here is Douglas County Courthouse. The next stop that we made was the foundation of the courthouse down in the northwest corner here. And here's the rock that makes up the foundation of the courthouse. And, it had a very rough feel to it. You can kind of see some of the bedding planes that are in this rock. I see kind of lines that are running through the rock like this. Up here, they're moving up in this direction. You can see the lines, oops, back like that. So again, observations of what you see here, then what type of rock, igneous, sedimentary, metamorphic, then give me a name for the rock, and then whatever question you have. Here's a even a closer up view of the rock. And again, the interesting part here was, I need to scroll down on this. I'm going to take the picture down with me. You've got a bedding plane also have one coming like that. So it's got lines coming in that are just cut right here. That was what I wanted to see in that particular picture. The next step, stop, is the monument right on the northwest corner of the, let's see, we'd be on 7th and Douglas. And you've got this monument that is in memoriam of veterans, and this was the large-scale observation. Here is a smaller scale observation of it. And one of the things that we again asked were to make observations, decide if it's igneous, sedimentary, metamorphic, and then put a name on it. What would you call this rock? So a little bit of story behind this rock. This is from the side monuments here, and the benches around here are all coming from Isle, Minnesota, which is over by Mille Lacs Lake. Very close, a quarry that was close to the school I used to teach at. And the name of this particular rock is called iridium, and it's quarried here in Minnesota. The last picture that I had here, what do you think you're seeing evidence of here? This might be what you'd want to write down on the last box of this column. We are at the monument row. What do you think is happening here? Okay, moving on. The next step that we made was the First Congregational United Church of Christ. And this is on the corner of Elm and 7th. And what we're going to do is we're going to walk up and take a look at the rock. Right? Ooh, can't do that yet. Okay, sorry about that. I'm going to come up and take a look at the rock right here. So I'm going to come up, and here is a semi-close-up view, and this I think I even get a little bit closer. You can't walk up and touch it, but from what you see here, you can make your observations. And would you classify this as igneous, sedimentary, or metamorphic? And could you put a name on this? A little bit of story about this type of rock. This rock is one of the more famous rocks that are used for building stones here in Minnesota. It's called Kasota stone. Kasota is named after a town in southern Minnesota where a lot of this rock is quarried. And my question to you would be, can you find other examples of this particular rock in Alexandria? Okay, moving on. And here we come to the old library. And this is a Carnegie library. Andrew Carnegie built public libraries in small towns in Minnesota. In fact, around the country. It was his way of paying back to communities. And so this is an actual Carnegie library. And the actual rock that you have here is cement. It's worked cement. But the steps are exhibiting a process in the rock cycle. I was wondering from this picture if you could figure out what that process would be. And my last question about this building, it was built in the year MCM 111. What year is that? If you could write that on your town walk inquiry sheet, MCM 111, and then right next to it, what is the year that represents? Okay? Now, we are walking towards electronics. We are on Broadway right now. And we're standing right in front of this building right here. And I'm looking at these pillars. And actually, not just the pillars, but the base of the building down here. This is all made out of this type of rock. And if you want to look at it a little bit closer, these are the polished pillars. And looking at it even closer, here's the structure of it. So you can make your observations of this rock, decide if it's igneous, sedimentary, or metamorphic, and then tell me the name of it. Okay, and I want you to remember this picture, because I've got a question for you from this picture, and it'll be about the next building that we see also. The next building is looking across the street. We're going to cross Broadway and go over to Farmers National Bank. And we're going to look at this area. Whoops, I'm touching the screen, Tom. We'll look at this area right here and see what we see. And there we are. We're looking at the pillar, and here's the rock that you see here. And my question to you is, how does this rock compare with this rock? What can you tell me that is different in the story of the rock that you see at Electronics and the rock that you see that's part of Farmers National Bank? Okay? And our final stop is the U.S. The U.S. Bank building on 7th and Broadway. And we're going to look at this is such a cool building. It's a rock wall building. And here is a close-up. Actually, I think I have these pictures out of order. Yeah, here's the larger scale picture. And my question to you is, have you seen any of this rock before? Okay, have you seen any of this rock before? This bank is kind of unique in that all of the rock that you see here comes from Minnesota. And I can tell you some stories about different rock. And if you ask me, I can tell you a story about, I'm going to tell you a story about that rock. I can tell you a story about this rock. I can tell you a story about this rock. And I could probably tell you a story about this one too. And even this one. If you go on our trip later this month, you're going to see that rock. You've already seen examples of this one and this one. This one I hope you never get to look at up close, because if you do, it means you're in trouble. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And these two rocks are kind of kissing cousins of each other. So that's our town walk. I hope you've had fun. And if you've got any questions about this, please come and talk to me. Thank you very much.